going to be talking about the Planet of the Apes movies. In particular, the 2011 reboot trilogy. Obviously, Kingdom is in theaters right now. We'll be talking about that in a future episode, I'm sure. But if you are curious, it is getting good reviews. So, watch it or don't. It's shout out William H. Macy.
Is he in the new one?
Yeah, he's top billing.
That's sick.
Top,
Love that.
Top
I
four.
love that.
Yeah.
Excited to see this new one. Love this franchise, and I'm excited to watch the new one whenever I get around to it.
Yeah, this has always been a franchise I've just not touched because it came out in that, if there's like a movie that came out like 2011 to 2013, most likely I didn't watch it. I was in my non-watching movie stage. And also, like, I didn't really understand what was going on just by like the titles and the trailers. Like, I was very confused by the world, so I never jumped into it. But finally, I had an excuse to here, and I was pleasantly surprised, especially by I'll get into my takes on it, but definitely surprised just by the amount of heart in these movies. I kind of always felt like they were like Transformers adjacent, and in a way they are, but like in a good way, not in a Transformers-y way. They're quality action movies with actual heart in them. It's crazy.
Yeah, heart and just like very character driven. I always loved the first Planet of the Apes Rise because you'd never really seen like that type of sci-fi movie before, and especially where it ends off, where it's like where it kind of ends very ambitiously, where it's like, oh, something's about to happen. But I always loved that aspect to it, and not to mention just like the CGI is just incredible, and that's probably one of the reasons why I got into movies and why I love movies so much, is just like watching the behind the scenes of this type of movie, and just seeing the type of stuff that can be put on screen is just incredible.
Yeah, I think that's if you're like me and you didn't watch the movie and like you're just vaguely aware of it, I think one thing that a lot of people saw in the marketing of this movie is, I remember they would release just like things and not be super clear that it was like movie promo. Or someone would take it and re-upload it without the context that it's from Planet of the Apes, and people would eat it up because of how impressive it really is, especially just the movements of the animals. You could tell there was someone just watching apes for months to get their movements down, because it's really impressive. There's so much time that goes into that kind of stuff, and something as trivial as a short scene of a monkey clapping or jumping around, or just the way they walk, is really impressive. And they also have to put a bit more fantasy element into that as well, with the apes doing things that a normal ape wouldn't do. They had to kind of be like, okay, if an ape could shoot an assault rifle, how would he do it? Some like one-handed, throwing it around like that, and that's what they did. So it's super interesting just looking at the little details, like you're saying, with the models and everything. And sometimes I will find myself, especially in the quieter scenes, just kind of hyperfixating on that stuff.
Yeah, like this movie does a really good job of making you think that everything is real when you know that it's not. And another like story element that I loved was how each movie is just so different. Like the first movie, you get kind of like your classic sci-fi, like laboratory type movie, and then the second one you kind of get your little bit of a Dark Knight Rises, a little bit with like a Joker-esque type character, like rising up against the norm. And then in the third one, you just get like a war. You just get like a straight up war movie, that these things like shouldn't necessarily go together, but they do, and they do incredibly well.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of just something that the MCU, when it was working really well with like Winter Soldier and stuff, being like the espionage movie, and Iron Man 3 being a, kind of boots on the ground Christmas coming of age a little bit for a midlife crisis anxiety story.
Yeah.
And they just use the universe as a device to tell whatever story they want to tell. And
Mhm.
you would think that would be a lot harder to do with literal apes, but they do it pretty flawlessly. I wish there was more like world building a little bit, and I'll kind of get into that when we go over the movies. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. With Rise of the Planet of the Apes, released in 2011, directed by Rupert Wyatt, which I wasn't in the film community when in 2011. I was 11 years old, so I didn't really keep up with the production, but I imagine it was pretty crazy that a guy who had only directed a short film in 2008 got a massive budget to do a reboot of a franchise like this. Literally does not have a feature length film, and he got selected for this. Kind of crazy, but I think he did a pretty good job, all things considered.
Yeah, I think especially having a franchise where this part of the story hadn't really been told before, and they're kind of starting over and kind of telling the origin of the simian flu. I thought that they did a really good job of blending the elements of the previous Planet of the Apes movies that people liked, but also yeah, just like I said before, it's just like one of those sci-fi movies where that I love, that's just like half of it takes place in a lab. They're trying to do something goes wrong, and then chaos ensues, you know?
Yeah, there was about like 30 minutes into the film where I was just like, okay, but where Monk? Uh, and then it starts getting into it. I think it's a bit slow to start, but I understand why they have to do that. I will say Caesar is a crazy thing to name a little monkey. Like, I'm gonna name this little monkey Caesar. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
completely normal thought process there for him. Uh, but I think that this is my favorite story. I think it could have been tightened up. You could have maybe cut like 8 minutes from the opening. There's times though where I think the script does struggle, and that's interesting because you have an inexperienced director, but he didn't write this. There was like these are well-seasoned screenwriters, and I feel like they really brought the movie down just with a few like not logical inconsistencies, but just like writing things that are just like, oh, what are we doing here? Like, he knows the type of ape Caesar is, and he still like just like gives him over to this. I know it was court ordered, but it was very obviously not a good place, and Caesar can communicate with him, and he doesn't like go back the next day. It's like, hey, is everything good? Like, he just leaves him, and he's just like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of frustrating in that sense, where it's like, why would you do that? And there's later, just experimenting the drug on his dad. I don't think that's necessarily bad, because they set up how desperate he is, and there's this is no way to live, so he was taking it into his own hands, and I think that
Yeah.
gives his character some shape, some edge to it. James Franco though, man, I 2011, I understand, just don't think he's the guy for a performance like this.
Yeah, I always looked at him as I liked him in the role, just because I don't know, maybe it doesn't really seem like Actually, I don't really know why I'm defending this.
I'm just saying, like, if that's
now that I think about it, like James Franco doesn't really take me as scientist, type, and it is funny thinking about how the whole Planet of the Apes started from James Franco,
and the entire like wipeout with the virus started from a guy not like putting his mask on, like
yeah,
entirety of humanity just wiped out because of that boy right there. It's a strange film, and it's very 2011 written on it at times, and I say that not like it's not overly early 2010s, just like with some of the writing choices. And this is why I felt like it was a bit Transformer-y at the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, we have to have the human characters that are gonna like interact with the apes and stuff, and I thought for sure he was gonna like kind of live happily ever after with Caesar. Maybe not happily ever after, but like at least they're reunited and they're chill at the end or something, which I not really. It's I liked all the stuff with Caesar growing up. I think that was my favorite part of the movie, was just seeing him grow up, seeing where his morals come from, and then seeing that expanded upon in the sequel of like just how he came to get those morals. The scene where he says no for the first time is super good. Like that is like, ooh, like
chills.
Yeah, and it shouldn't give you chills because it's goofy. It's a it's a CGI ape yelling no, but it's set up so well, and it's given so much weight to it that what is happening is monumental and monumental. That doesn't seem right. Anyways, they set it up so well and they frame it so well to the point where these things that should be silly actually do hit, and I think they did a really good job for the era in terms of CGI, obviously, and being able to communicate the emotion in these apes, even the ones that aren't technically like greater beings yet with superior intelligence. They're still all really well done, and it was cool just seeing like the scenes of Caesar interacting with other apes for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. And to that point, the character arcs that, like, even the mini character arcs that people go through, like Rocket, the one who is kind of like the bully at the beginning, who's like picking on him when he first arrived there, and seeing Caesar win him over, and then him letting out the gorilla, and then the orangutan Maurice, how he was like an ex-circus orangutan, so he has that like ability to communicate through sign language with Caesar, so he was like kind of the in with the other apes almost a little bit. So yeah, just all really good stuff, and I love this movie back when it came out.
Can we talk about the facility for a second? The ape facility, like those don't exist in real life. The apes, yeah, come on, they're ape, like there's apes are celebrated. They're not throwing them in.
Was that I assume it was supposed to be like a dog kennel.
Yeah, it was, but like it's I don't think like, ape kennels exist.
Yeah. No, they definitely do not. They're definitely not in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, that's probably the last place you would get an ape kennel. But yeah, I think overall this was close to my favorite. If there was a few things cut down and a few different things with the script, I think it would be my favorite, just because I love the kind of origin story of Caesar. I've always heard people talk about like, oh, Caesar's such a badass, and I'm just like, it's a CGI monkey. Like, what are we talking about here? And like, but it, like, I feel when he feels in the first movie, and I think that does get lost in the other movies a little bit, just because there's so many different apes, and they're kind of hard to distinguish and stuff. So it's kind of hard to get that same like feeling I got in the first one with like Caesar and just seeing him like do things, simple stuff like swing on like redwood trees and stuff. Like that was just really cool the first time he got to do that. And then when he goes back to the house, and all of the stuff with the window, all of the window stuff was amazing. Like him initially like sitting through the window, him in the kennel, then drawing the window and putting his head on it, and then at the end when he goes there and looks out of it one last time, like all of that is just so good.
Yeah, I wonder if they knew how big of a thing like that symbol was going to be like to this whole universe, because it seems like the whole universe is built off of that one symbol, which was the window. But yeah, it also symbolized, you know, because they called him bright eyes, so you could see that's like an eye with a sparkle in it, and it's also the hope of the symbol of hope. So yeah, just all the metaphors I feel like adding up, and yeah, just very beautifully done.
Yeah. Onto Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So Rise came out in 2011, directed by Rupert Wyatt. They switched up the director. All of these have different or no, not all of them. But the next two are directed by Matt Reeves, and then Kingdom is directed by Wes Ball. So they've gone through a few directors, but Matt Reeves, I think what was he doing before this? It was he did 10 Cloverfield Lane, in between them, but before this it was Cloverfield, Let Me In, The Yards, The Pallbearer, and Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. He was the screenwriter for. But Matt Reeves is kind of a household name now when we talk about directors, but when he got this in 2014 was less so. And I think this probably put him on the map for like mainstream, like kind of awareness here.
Yeah.
And this is my personal favorite out of the three. I'm curious what you would say.
I would have said Rise before I rewatched them, but I think War is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dawn, the reason I like Dawn is because you get some human stuff. There definitely my frustration sets in with the questions I have about this universe when it comes to this movie, because like humans are still alive, but it's very like Fallout-y, like they're in settlements, they're just random groups, there's no communication or backbone. But like, did the virus wipe out the whole world?
I believe
like,
so.
So like what's going on in Europe? There's no apes in Europe, really?
I think it was just
there's
like
probably some apes.
I think there was just like transferred eventually throughout the entire world.
So what, like, when it comes to that, like, apparently there's part of the army left. There's also it's very vague on what actually still exists or still is around. And I think one thing I do wish they did more of, and I understand why they don't, because budgetary, is like the remnants of the old world. I like seeing that stuff. We don't get a lot of that in these movies. It's mainly just done in forests and stuff. Like somehow the virus also just wiped out all major highways. So, you know, but I think for what you do get in Dawn, you get probably just, I think, the tightest story in terms of telling themes. That's what I'm trying to say. Themes.
Yeah.
The themes of apes and humans, and having two species like that on the same planet, as well as, correct me if I'm wrong on his name, is it Koba?
Koba?
Toba?
Koba.
Toga. Koba. Why was I thinking it was a T? Koba. Koba. So you get the first like villain ape, Koba. Obviously there was some ape antagonist bully in the first one, but this is the first like actual antagonist that is say ape. And he is awesome.
With
He is
reasonable
so
intentions too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like his whole backstory on how he's been tortured his whole life by humans, so that's why he wants to get revenge on him. Like just really great stuff.
This is what I was talking about when it's like, it's silly monkeys, but also it's telling a bit more complex of a story, and it's really just an analogy for what humans have already done and what humans did early on in civilization, of like interacting with other tribes, interacting with other races, other cultures and stuff. It was always not similar to this, but in the same kind of unknowing of it all.
Yeah.
And like that action scene where they storm the humans, and you almost get to see the difference in strategic advancements, kind of.
Yeah.
Because the humans are ex-military, they have a plan, and the apes are just on horses charging down the middle and getting picked off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool payoff, because you get to see in the next movie when there's an actual war, they do advance past that because their brains, they be moving pretty quick. So what took humanity 200 years takes them a couple days, I guess. But I think this movie, really, really solid. This one has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rise has an 82%. And I think that's just the difference in more focus. There's not like two different things going on, because in Rise we didn't really even talk about the whole Alzheimer's thing, but that's given a lot of time, and obviously since everyone just ends up dying, none of it really matters in the end, because everyone's dead. So I guess they did cure Alzheimer's in that sense. What would you say, like, in terms of these movies and the director switch, do you think I think it's noticeable in terms of scale, Matt Reeves?
That's what I was going to say when you were talking about him earlier and how this kind of put him on the map. This really seems like it's a huge scale movie, and a huge scale movie with like a center character that feels like like you said, we don't really we connect with him, I feel like, a little bit less, because there is so much more, but there still is that through line of the character that we know and somewhat relate to, but also dealing with this large scale with like the apes like battling the humans, and just the whole final battle, or like I guess the final scene with Koba and Caesar at the end. Like that was all really well done, and I think that's probably what put him over the top and put him on the map.
Yeah, I think the climax of this movie is very good. Honestly, pretty much, I think the first act is slow, but from there it picks up, and it really does have a lot of emotion behind it. There's kind of this cool like misunderstanding. Generally this kind of stuff upsets me, but it makes sense from a writing point of view. Like, why would the apes think that Caesar was shot by another ape? Like, there's no precedent that they would ever think that, and it makes sense as to why they would want to go to war against the humans, because they killed their leader, they killed their king, they killed their really a near god to them. Let's be honest. Like he's like ape Jesus. So you can understand the motives and the intent, and it all makes sense. And I think that's really what I like. I think it's really tightly written, and same thing with the third in the, I guess you could say, trilogy, but obviously we just got another one, so it's not really that. But War for the Planet of the Apes came out in 2017, also directed by Matt Reeves and starring Woody Harrelson as the main villain in this one.
No trilogy is complete without the H-Man.
It's true. You can't put a nice bow on it without it. This one, they don't put him in a wig, unfortunately. They keep him bald. Yeah, real tragic. This one's hardcore. Like, this is like
straight off the bat, like just like straight away you see that it says like monkey killer on his helmet, and it's like that you're about to watch some shit.
Yeah, when I saw that, I kind of laughed. I was like, this is goofy. Like, there's no way. Like, this is actually what this movie's about to be. And then this movie is about to be that, but it's not going to be goofy. It is going to actually
full seriousness. Yeah,
make sense, and not like I want, like, in theory, I should be laughing at what's happening, but it's just so well done. You can't. I've gotten more emotion from this movie than I have any war movie that I've watched in a long, long time. Like, this was so real. There was so much emotion. Andy Serkis obviously killed this. All three movies, we didn't really talk about that, but I guess the last two, I don't think not the first one, but last two.
Probably in it at the very end, I'm assuming.
Right. He's just not billed. So I'm just looking at the top billing. So he actually gets top billing for Dawn and War. And it was he really is able to convey a lot of emotions through that CGI ape face. I don't know everything that goes into it, but obviously, like you were saying right off the bat, Woody Harrelson just kills his wife and son, and I felt so sad at that moment.
Yeah, devastating. And just so many emotions that he could convey. And there was a little bit I feel like there's a hint of Andy Serkis coming through Caesar in this one, in the very emotional moments, just because like you get so emotional that like you that ape voice goes away a little bit, like when he first sees Cornelius and he's like my son's alive, like I felt like see a little bit of Andy Serkis coming through there, but yeah, he absolutely killed this. The physicality of it, the emotion of it, everything. I just don't think anybody is gonna do an 8 better.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I guess people are getting the opportunity to try now. Yeah. But
with help from Andy Serkis, apparently.
Yeah, he's coaching. Maybe that's what William H. Macy is doing. He's always had an interesting face like that, so I could see him doing a solid ape, and that's I think that's something that isn't talked about enough, really, with actors, is how well of an ape they could do. James Franco could not do an ape, not Definitely even close.
No.
Woody Harrelson probably could do an ape, but he doesn't do an ape here. He does a really good villain, like a really, really good villain here. Yes. That is just kind of the worst, kind of the absolute worst, but like also, can you blame him? Not really. Like, he's just evil. He's, sometimes I just like the guy just to be a little evil.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that this trilogy was missing, was somebody who's just a little bit evil. Nobody like may have some a little bit blurred intentions, but yeah, for the most part, was just evil.
Yeah, just evil, and he gets his comeuppance at the end, and there's some really cool scenes with like I don't know if his name is Donkey, but he calls him Donkey or
Yeah.
something like that.
Bad Ape.
and
The best
Bad
ape.
Bad Ape was interesting, and also just like a really cool world building thing where you're just like, yeah, I guess that makes sense that if these apes have just like that kind of intelligent, you would just get these weirdos.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be weirdos,
And
especially if they're left
somebody
isolated.
Yeah, left isolated and like were talked to their whole life. Like I get it from some of the ones that were out in the wild, but for the ones that were just like talked to at the zoo every day, like it makes sense that he would pick up a little bit of the language and try to reciprocate that.
Yeah. So shout out Bad Ape. I think out of the three, like I said, I think Donna is my favorite. But I don't. It's like by such a small margin with all three of these.
Yeah.
All of these movies, like, they go together really, really well. Like, really, really well. There's not one where you're like, oh, I can't wait to get done with this one so we can get to the next one, because that's when it really gets good. Everyone is, like, required viewing, and not in a bad way, where you have to, like, remember a bunch of different, like, lore details. It's in a very simple... you'll see little elements called back to, and those little elements, they're always really well done. So I had a really good time watching this little trilogy.
Yeah, it was fun going back and rewatching it.